What's up, beautiful people? This is Kevin Orris. I'm going to do a live interview with Brother Joshua Hathaway. I'm going to talk about some charged topics that I think all of us have been paying attention to this election cycle, this year of the dragon 2024. With just, how much division, acceleration, intensity, escalation that we're seeing in our communities and our culture, right? And the village online. What is the proper way to view this? How do we make sense of it? We're really just going to be doing some sense making and diving into some of these topics. So obviously, if you're watching this video later, just type in the comments replay. Let us know what your thoughts are. What are you tracking? You know, sense making is really about what are you noticing? What are you tracking in the space? And then giving your take on it, right? Obviously, everyone has an opinion and they're all okay to have. That's what's great about the marketplace of ideas is we all have our own ideas and opinions, and it's really important that we share them. That's how we make sense together as a community. I also think it's super valuable to, speak into what we want to see while acknowledging what we have, right? In terms of the culture, in terms of what's out there, what's happening, we have to start where we're at, right? We have to meet ourselves where we're at as a culture here in the West, in America, or wherever you are in the world. It's happening globally. We're all more connected than ever by these little devices and the internet. So I think it's going to be a powerful discussion here. So just going to wait a little bit for Joshua to join. Yeah. Now we're here on Monday. It's November 4th on Monday. So we're one day away from the US election. And, whatever the result's going to be, I doubt it's going to be, non-triggering for half the country, right? Because it's just so much writing on it, so much build up, so much intensity that's going to come into it that it's going to be really, really interesting to see how it all plays out, right? I'm definitely fascinated by it. Try not to get too emotionally invested in it. I really am more interested in its effects rather than the causes, so to speak, and like focusing on that. So I'm gonna invite Joshua on here now. Aloha. We'll see what we got. There he is. What's up, brother?
Up, bro?
Good to see you, man. Aloha. How you doing?
To you, aloha. Hey, so good, man. So good.
Are you still out on the islands?
No, I'm actually in California now. I'm in North Fork, which is like literally the very center of California. If you were to kind of spin California on your finger, you'd be here in the Sierras.
Okay.
Like an hour south of Yosemite. Super stoked.
Right on. Yeah, I was just in Yosemite with my lady and her family earlier this year, man. That's such special land. I love the nature of California. It's so good.
Yeah, there's very few places on the planet like Yosemite for what it does to the soul. Just like you feel so huge and so tiny at the same time, right? Just like, wow.
So expansive there. Yeah. Well, awesome, brother. We can dive right in. We'll see who joins us on here. I know Facebook Live can be hit or miss, but I'll save this video, re-upload it to YouTube, etc., so we can have it for posterity. And yeah, before we dive in, Josh, I'd love for you to just share for the folks, like, who are you? What are you about, bro? What's your mission?
Thank you, brother. Well, essentially all I am is a seed of regenerative culture planted in the midst of an empire. All I am is just like my whole life's work is to just bring the spirit of aloha, bring the spirit of love, bring the most regenerative coding possible into the present moment so that this body can heal more beautifully and elegantly, so our relationship can heal more beautifully and elegantly, and so that the economy of our collaboration can meet our needs more beautifully and elegantly and prosperously for every one of us. So I do that. I've been doing that through my work as a coach and a guide for individuals and couples, men and women. Been doing that as a community steward for many years, and I've been doing that as an author and a writer and a songwriter. And I really believe that this regenerative evolution, the revolution, is going to be carried through music and through art and through the beauty of the burgeoning culture. And so it's a multidisciplinary artistic sort of palette that we get to work with here.
Awesome,
So
bro.
thanks for asking.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen each other in a long time. I fondly remember time we spent in Bali together, and I think I ran into you at another retreat somewhere, maybe in California. But yeah, it's been epic to watch your journey from afar online, and yeah, just would love to just dive in. I was posting about accelerationism, something I've been kind of studying. It's been coming up in the symposia. I run like symposiums for my men's academy and also with my brothers here in Austin. We're just kind of sense making, basically. That's what I was rambling about before you joined. That, you know, I'm looking forward to just sense making with you, right? Which is just the community way to make sense. What are you tracking? What are you noticing? What do you want to acknowledge? How do we want to shift things? What do we want to see? But what do we have? And kind of comparing those things. And yeah, you said some really interesting things. I'm all about the re-evolution, right? It's the name of my podcast. Like revolution, evolution, it's always how we move forward. But, you know, as we're a day before the US election, you know, in this year of the dragon, it's been a big year of changes, I think, for everyone. Everyone has their little story arc, but the collective story arc right now is I'd say it's pretty intense and pretty exciting. There's a lot of fear, but there's also a lot of hope at the same time, which we love to see. And yeah, I'm curious just to dive in, like your initial reaction to, you know, this is kind of a tech capitalist philosophy that's out there. You know, guys like Peter Thiel and some of these characters, these tech moguls, believe that we should accelerate globalization, economic and technological progress as fast as possible, because somehow that'll get us to either a utopian state or some kind of place where we can, you know, solve a lot of the big problems. And obviously there's many issues with that. And then you provided an alternative model. I'd love for you to share about that.
Yeah, well, the fundamental alternative model is slow is fast. And I'd love to practice that right now by, if you're willing, just taking 3 deep breaths in through the nose and through the mouth to just like feel, pause, and open. So, Hannu. Oh, and anybody tuning in with us, just feel it with us. Take that deep breath in through the nose. Oh. Last one, deepest one, we'll hold at the top for a moment, Hannu. Take another sip. Smile. Come on. Oh.
So good. Thanks for that.
Yeah, because, you know, like both of us are more capable of doing something exquisite now than we were 3 breaths ago, right?
Okay.
Like that moment of pause, that moment of just like pausing at the threshold and resourcing ourselves for what's to come. Like that's you know, as all of my Gong Fu teachers and all of my martial arts sort of masters that I've worked with have said, like slow is fast. Slow is fast. Like if you're in a hurry, you're gonna fuck it up. You know, if you're trying to, you don't have to try to go fast. Speed is effortless at the pace of life.
Yeah.
Speed is effortless at the pace of life, and speed is deadly at the pace of your mind.
Totally.
You know?
I mean, this is even the Navy SEAL model, right? Like slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Exactly. Slow like a pro. Anybody who's, you know, anybody who's worked with like wood, worked with their hands, worked with like, you know, like real, like anybody who's had like 1,000 punches thrown at their face understands that being in a hurry does not get you there faster. It actually only damages everybody involved, right? The only time where we need to force or hurry something is when either our agendas are not aligned with like life, organic life, or that where our pace is not aligned with organic life. And I think, you know, this accelerationism thing is really interesting because anybody who's studied, I think Terence McKenna talked about this most lucidly.
He's the best.
About the acceleration of novelty, and that there's an arc, and we're actually spiraling in terms of the speed of the cycle of change, right? And you know, from a technological, we're seeing ourselves through this technological lens as we watch the doubling of the speed of our computers, right? We're watching this like faster and faster like spiral toward a center point, right? And it's easy to interpret this in some way as like isolated to computer phenomena. But actually, I don't experience it this way. Neither did Terrence. Neither does the Tao Te Ching. As we kind of map it onto the sort of relevant time maps we can use in our sense making from over large arcs of time, right? If I'm only trying to make sense of something, but I'm only including a data set that includes like yesterday and like this morning and the possibility of tomorrow, like I'm going to come up with a whole different sense of meaning that I will by reaching back a million years in sort of like geological history and include, and then shooting my awareness 1,000 generations ahead to the most beautiful possible human species that can exist 1,000 generations ahead of us,
Right.
right? When I take in that scope and then I work my way into where we are from both of those directions, then I have a data set that I think is much more favorable for producing the results that we want to produce, right? And so the acceleration is happening at every level of our fractal experience, right? Change is happening faster than it ever did before. People within our one lives, people are living like 17 different lives at
Right.
least, right? Because we're here, like we're coming to the end of a massive yuga, a massive cycle, and we've got a lot of cleanup to do to like to get ourselves ready to sort of make it through the eye of that needle, right? That is our evolutionary culmination. You could
Compounds on itself. And something interesting about the idea of like an organic timeline versus an artificial, or the notion of organic, like I think in the terms of natural law,
yeah,
like is technology inorganic because we created it and we're organic? It's almost a perfect mirror to where we're at psychologically. If you want to look at like Jung and the archetypes, like, and this is in alchemy in the Middle Ages, the alchemist, the technologist, is projecting their inner contents of their psyche onto the tool or the artifice, and that's giving us really valuable data the other way, which is why
totally.
technology is like informing us with its acceleration.
100%. Yeah, everything that we create is actually just an attempt to like understand ourselves better. Actually, every tool that we've ever made is just an extension of something that already actually exists within the like the most advanced technology on the planet, which we all have to admit is a human body, right? And and so our technology, our out picturing of all of these sort of projects and interesting tools and ideas that come from within the human body have been a really wonderful like series of experiments, and hopefully some of us at least are paying attention to the data and learning from what we've created, right? And you know, I really see I've been thinking a lot about this because I think it's really easy to become hopeless about the state of the world when you look at the sort of like the who's producing the technologies, how those technologies are getting funded, why they're getting funded, and then who ends up having control over every new technology that emerges into the world, right? And what their actual ends are for the control of that technology. And
Right.
like, spoiler alert, it's not the thriving of humanity and ecosystems, right? Like the by whatever accident, we don't have to posit like an evil Illuminati to say that that we have constructed for ourselves a society where the means of the power is consolidated into the hands of the most selfish people in our society, and that's been happening for 100 generations at
Right.
least, right? So we're 100 generations down into that experiment where the people who were able to invent the most deadly technologies and do the most harm won. They took over the whole world and have replicated a culture across the globe, which is antithetical to the thriving of ecosystems and to the thriving of communities, and ultimately to the thriving of even a single human body when we outpicture and look at our systems, right?
Right.
Justice and healthcare and all these things,
Totally.
right?
I mean, the stoic mindset always, because this is so easy. Like people now on like the interwebs are calling it black pill. You know, we have like red pill and blue pill, right? Like red pill is like, I want to awaken, I want to critically think. Blue pill is like, ah, it's good enough. Black pill is like, it's over, right? And unfortunately, there's a lot of people getting black pilled right now. The stoic mindset of like Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius would say like, never attribute to malice what can be attributed to ignorance. So I think you're right. There's definitely people that don't seem to prioritize human thriving that are running some of these levers that move society and engineer things. But I'm so hopeful and optimistic because I think so much of it's ignorance. If they could feel in their body, I think I saw you did a video about this. If they could feel in their body that they could profit, whatever they think profit is, power, status, love, see me, right? If they knew they could get that by prioritizing human flourishing and protecting the earth, I think they would actually do it, which is the craziest part.
It's so obvious, right? Like once you have that felt lived experience of what thriving feels like, of what generosity, what love feels like in your body and in your bones, like you can't fool yourself for very long anymore. It's like once you see that thing that you thought was a giant snake coiled up in the corner of your room is actually just a pile of rope that's actually there for your use, like you can't like get freaked out every time you see it anymore. At least not, you might have that reflex for a second, right? And so yeah, this body is designed to love. These bodies are designed to produce like serotonin and oxytocin, and they're designed to link up with other bodies in creative, collaborative ways, right? And this axiom that I've been working with for a while now and trying in all these different ways to articulate is essentially that profit is poison. Profit is the extra that happens, that you charge somebody beyond what it cost you to produce and deliver the product, right? Profit, there is no extra. So that profit gets extracted from somewhere in the system, from the producers, from the consumers, from the ecosystem, or from the future, right? Like the profit model is inherently flawed and will inevitably destroy us to the extent that we continue to follow it.
Mm.
The alternative is actually really simple. It's just a sharing model. It's a resource distribution based on needs rather than a resource accumulation based on power model.
Sure.
And the body works on that model. No body can thrive on a profit model,
Well, I'm
And so
more bullish on the other prophet, right? Prophecy.
yeah,
That's the prophet I want to see right there. It's not a coincidence in language that those words are rhyming and
yeah,
like have the same tonality. Like for me, like capitalism is, I look at it through the butterfly myth, right? The imaginal selves. Capitalism and this profit worship, because let's be honest, what's the new religion? We talk about this a lot in my men's group. Like the world's become secular in many ways, right? It's like, oh, we figured it out, guys. Materialism, secular, humanism. It's like, great, we don't need religion anymore. Which I don't agree with. I think religion serves a very powerful purpose, the spiritual, the sacred. But anyway, like the basic worship now are lab coats and suits. Those are the priest class. And profit is the god. It's not even money. Like Pink Floyd warned us about money, being the root of all evil and told us all about it on Dark Side of the Moon. But money is not actually what they're worshiping. It's profit, like you're saying. It's about leverage.
yeah,
And unfortunately, goes way back when basically, a lot of theorists think it was when we transitioned to agriculture, because basically hunting, gathering, you couldn't store the meat. You'd hunt, you'd provide the food, you'd gather, you provide the food. But once you start growing like grain, you can store it, right? And then I have more than you. But it's like, hey, I'm starving. It's like, well, sorry, I've got, an army and I'm going to protect my grain. And by the way, we're going to take your grain, right?
Exactly. Yeah, the root of civilization, right? If you look up the word civilized, what it means is citified, right? And nobody needs a city until they have something to violently protect. And nobody needs to violently protect anything when we live in an equitable society where everybody's sharing what they have, right? So like this whole notion of civilization, like civilization is our sort of the beginning of our demise, the beginning of this imbalance,
Which
right?
lines up with the fall myth. Like Eden was living in symbiosis with nature.
Yeah.
And the fall is entering into this separateness where we're like mind fucked into doing these practices we're describing. Now, what's fascinating is every culture has a myth or a prophecy about how to return to the symbiosis, which is why I was bringing up the imaginal cell. I think it's all perfect. If it's happening, that means it's happening for a reason. Like I believe in the matrix of life and the wisdom of life. So all the stuff we're describing, like you can get like, if you really get into it, it's like, you know, I've been there, you get down and out, you're depressed, you're like, fuck, what do we do? But it's serving a function. The caterpillar, capitalism, I believe, it eats like 17 times its body weight, right? It's taking more than it needs. It's like, oh, it's gorging itself, but it's not to stay a caterpillar. No. It's gonna go into the chrysalis and metamorphose. And the way, and McKenna laid it out so poetically. Anyone who's never looked up Terrence McKenna, there's an amazing YouTube channel called We Plants Are Happy Plants. This guy's like a McKenna scholar. Anyway, go look up his stuff. He talks about how the weirdness, the novelty, the war, the like strife will reach such an intensity that even the most skeptical, the most materialist among us have to stop and just be like, what is going on? And it's because this singularity point, the caterpillar can't see past the event horizon, which means our systems right now can't see past extractive, like game A, zero-sum capitalism. But on the other side is an amazing world that I believe can work for everyone. And it's not like socialism or communism. That's all part of the game A model. It's returning to these ancestral, village-based, communitarian, symbiotic, like symbiosis is the best word I have. We don't even have political language for what this is yet, right? We can't even describe it really well, which tells you a lot about how close it may be in the future, how far it may be. You know, we can speculate, but I love that that line of thinking because it's very hopeful.
Absolutely. It's a, and it really is. It's not even that it's out there somewhere. What we've created is kind of a bubble inside of an already holistic universe, right? Like the universal laws didn't change anywhere along the way.
Right.
Like we've been going through a developmental process as a collective. And I've been calling it our adolescence since I was like 19 years old. Like humanity is like has been hitting the edges of our adolescent behavior, our behavior where our mind is powerful enough to do some real damage, but our heart isn't online. Our emotional maturity and our sort of organic level of selflessness is not sufficient to sort of balance out that mind. That's basically the last epic of humanity, right? Like, let's do it because we can and fuck around and find out, you know? And like, you know, the good thing is like, they're like anybody who studied development of any kind recognizes the patterns of development, recognizes that all development is directional, that it never actually goes backward. It always does a bit of a regression move before it actually pops into the next phase. That's how development works. And so, you know, we do get to be in trust of the process that is way smarter than us, that has organized everything around us, including us. And I think we are also required to enhance our capacity for holistic engagement with the world. And that the only meaningful acceleration that any of us can do is to accelerate our capacity to relax into what's happening, to feel into with senses, with the sort of coherent kind of meta senses that arise when our mind, our heart, and our body are actually like functionally, dynamically coherent with each other. And then we can tap into the other subtler senses and resources, constantly feeling into the field, constantly feeling into the fractal layers of collectivity, right? Like these are the things that I think are the only technologies worth investing in right now. And that's our own like body first and foremost, right? That's our own lived experience. And then that's our communities as we come together to experiment in synarchy, to experiment in what happens when we come together from within a holistic frame of reference. And we cultivate what I call the feeling of love at the very core of it all. Like love is the most trustworthy sort of energy that exists in the universe, and every culture has had a language and a word for this. My favorite word for it in the universe is aloha. The Hawaiian people, who happen to have this word at the very center, the very heart of their culture, as hello, as farewell, and as I love you, among other things, really got it. Because the word aloha means alo, the presence of, ha, the breath. Aloha, the presence of the breath. And alo also means to share the breath. And if we could just like simplify everything to this one like primary notion of sharing our breath. We share this breath. And then when we share this breath, oh, the collaboration that's possible out of that is just exquisite. But if I'm like not breathing, I'm haole, right? I'm no breath. If I'm a haole, if I'm not breathing, then I'm frustrated. I'm in a hurry. I'm trying to artificially accelerate this process because I'm feeling impatient with it. I want to get somewhere and I know where it's supposed to go. Right? Shaking that shit out.
I mean, the breath is the ultimate guide. Like it's just like inspire, expire, right? Inspire, to breathe in.
Yes.
Like inspire, even to conspire, to breathe together. A conspiracy is breathing together. It's like breath is like, it's the ultimate metaphor, because we're breathing with the trees right now. Like that's one of the most beautiful things about, and we could get into like, you know, the whole like, well, what about carbon dioxide? Like there's so many funny like comedic things for me about like people freaking out about the world's problems when we're just breathing together. And actually that's a co-creative act with us and the earth and with other humans. Now what I'm interested in, Josh, is like, I want to hear your take on this. And obviously we don't have to spend too much time on it, but you know, this year, since 2020, I feel like we've been in like the acceleration has intensified, if we want to look at the meta scale, because we had this whole COVID thing, which was fascinating to me, some kind of mass social experiment with varying results. But now we have another, like 4 years later, another election. And I've watched, you know, I'll say our community, like we know a lot of the same people, but we also in the same, like, let's say shades of culture in some ways, I'm assuming. And I've just watched like sport teams or like some kind of mimetic virus, Wedico, whatever you want to call it, just infect and exacerbate a lot of these things. And again, I believe in the Tao. I believe in the intelligence of Gaia. Mama Gaia knows exactly what she's doing for us adolescents. So I see it as serving a purpose. Now I'm still trying to figure out what it could be. And I'm curious of your take, or has it affected you in your communities? Maybe you haven't been affected by it as much. I've seen it a lot.
Oh man, the insanity, bro, the insanity. Well, listen, there's two things that I think are really important to keep in mind, right? One of them, and this is the holistic sort of like, for me, the holistic view, which is that I always have my left eye and my right eye open at the same time, right? And through one eye, through my left eye, I can see the unity of all phenomena, right? I can see how it's all just like, it's all serving a purpose, and it's all part of, and no matter how rich some dude is, and no matter how evil and selfish he is, and no matter how many generations his family has been fucking trying to sequester these resources to control others, like that dude is like a monkey compared to the next level out. And then there are 1,000 more levels out compared to that guy in a universe that's actually infinite, right? So that's my left eye, right? Like my left eye is like, yeah, it's fine. And then my right eye is like, yeah, this division of human beings is actually not accidental. It's an artificial acceleration, right? It is a tool being used by the wealthy and the media to muddy the waters and keep everybody against each other, so we don't look at the fact that 99% of the wealth of the planet is in the hands of 1% of the most selfish people who have demonstrated unequivocally that they are not well equipped to steward those resources on behalf of humanity. Right? And they're only getting more powerful. Their reach is only getting deeper into the human psyche as these devices get sort of like embedded within us, right? And get into the hands of our one-year olds, you know? Like, it's really important to recognize that we're facing a tremendous agenda as well, and that it is my own personal agency, right? My right fucking hand of standing up with a strong spine and a firm fucking stance and a dynamic capacity to meet the energy that comes to me, and an unwavering commitment to steward to steward this planet and these resources on behalf of future generations, that I can live in balance, that I can actually personally even just live in balance. If I'm not taking a stand for what I know to be true, I don't believe. No, I know in my cells what is pono and what is not pono, what is love and what is fear. I know this in my cells, and I can no longer collaborate with fear at any level of the fractal anymore, because I know that what I give my energy to and my mana and attention to flourishes, because that's how powerful I am. I'm a fucking god in my reality, right? And you're a god in your reality, and I'm a supporting character to the divine, being that's you, right? So how do we take a hold of our personal responsibility and remain like playfully surrendered to the divine theater of it at the same time, right? Because as soon as I make an enemy of somebody and like make it my job to like bring justice to them, like that's exactly the degenerative sort of coding in my DNA, like tightening my system and turning me into an agent of some form of violence in the world, right?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I totally agree. Definitely not by accident. It's not a coincidence. It's by design. It's the oldest trick in the book, the divide and conquer. And I think what's good about it in the acceleration model is, for many with their left and right eye open, it's become so egregious, so absurd. For me as a comedian, like there's so much comedy material there that it's waking people up faster than ever. So it's like, if I'm gonna LARP or cosplay as an evil elite or whatever you want to call it, and I'm like, all right, we want to get as much control as fast as possible using the most powerful tools. It's like that in natural law. It's like, okay, great. It's going to work on some folks. Congrats. It's also going to create a perfectly balanced, equal and opposite reaction of people being popped back into holistic awareness and wisdom. Like,
yeah,
their wisdom will come online, and wisdom is much different than like data or knowledge, right? These people are just consuming data. Wisdom tells you how to feel about the data, right? It helps you sense make. And I've talked to so many people I never would have imagined in my life, my relations, that would question things or questioning. And to me, that is a huge green flag where I'm like, all right, it's happening. All of the evolutionary theory, there's even like science on this, right? Science of it's called an equilibrium burst. 10% of a population reaches a threshold that shifts the whole collective. We don't need everyone to be on the same page. We just need these pockets of coherence, like these pockets of coherence. It creates the network. It's like
That's it. I mean, and my theory is that if there was one group of people on the whole planet who nailed it, we'd all know about them. We'd feel it, right? Because we've seen individual awakenings all over, scattered throughout history. What we don't yet have evidence of, what we haven't seen yet, is a group awakening. Is a group of people who wake up together, and what I like to imagine is a group of people who become the 10 fingers of two hands, who can instantly drop into a group awareness that makes their 10 bodies move in complete coherence, complete spontaneous coherence, and then just like relax back into their individuated nature. And it's that capacity to surrender into a larger sort of symphonic intelligence is in no way conflictual with our individuality. In fact, you have to have a very secure sense of individuated sovereignty in order to surrender as completely as that requires, right? These two parts of ourselves develop in perfect polarity, right?
Yeah.
And so we
I mean,
haven't
this is
seen
talking about
that.
with Buddha, right? It's like the next Buddha is a Sangha. It's not an
Yeah.
individual.
And that's the Christ too. I mean, the esoteric stuff of the Christ was that it's the church, right? It's the saints. The saints are not just these like people who behaved really well and so became historically known. The saints are the body of Christ on earth, living the collective body. The church is the body of Christ, and that's one of those opportunities I think we have right now. Like the insanity of American Christianity, like supporting Donald Trump, is like I think it's one of the greatest like occasions for an actual like huge conversion of conscience in Christianity right now. I think there's no way that true like those truly Christed people who truly like serve Christ cannot at some point wake up from that insanity and go, wow, we just went down a rabbit hole and there's repentance. We repent, right? Like, and that's, you know, I get delighted by these, like, it's just becoming harder and harder to like keep your hands over your eyes, you know?
Yeah.
But still people are doing it. And it's just like, holy fuck, like they got some endurance, you know?
It's a feat. It's a feat of endurance to keep your head in the sand at the level that's required today to buy like the slop that's coming down the pipeline, right? And this is well researched. You know, you can look at Jordan Peterson, you can look at all these characters that have studied totalitarianism or like the state tactics. And you know, one of the best is, you know, the Gulag Archipelago, you know, Solzhenitsyn. He talks about, he's like, we know that they know, the statists or whatever, know that we know it's bullshit.
Yeah.
And they're still doing it. That's like the highest level of like fuckery, where it's like professional wrestling, this idea of kayfabe, where it's, you know, it's fake, but you still get emotionally tied into it, and they know that you know it's fake and still put on the show. Like that to me is the craziest part about it. It takes a level of cognitive dissonance that's like heroic almost. Like I almost am in awe. I'm not even mad. I'm like, wow, like you have to be built with some tough stuff to go that deep.
Right. Yeah. No, it's so fascinating. It is so fascinating, right? And I mean, this boils down to the Hegelian dialectic and you know and to the master slave dialectic, right? Like I studied 19th century philosophy. I actually busted my tooth after I'd just gotten it capped. I was falling asleep in 19th century philosophy class during Hegel, and I fucking cracked this tooth and it shattered in my mouth. And I had this dream about the master slave dialectic. I was like, wait a second, this is totally inauthentic, because the master slave dialectic essentially says the master can kill the slave, right? The master is more powerful than the slave, but then the master chooses not to kill the slave, and the slave serves the master so as not to be killed, right? And so the master holds this threat of killing the slave, and the slave under that threat serves the master. But the whole thing is inauthentic because the master needs the slave. The master absolutely fundamentally needs the slave, but the slave doesn't need the master.
Mm.
The slave, the least important person of any corporation actually is the CEO. You can pull the CEO out and the whole fucking shebang is going to run just fine. If you pull the laborers off the line, or you pull the janitors, that place is going to shit really fast. Right? And so, you know, when we understand this like dialectic, you know, and when we overcome as Americans, we overcome this fear of communism. That's commie. That's communist, like decades of like really reinforcing this idea that anything communist is like sick and twisted and broken, you know, when actually communism and capitalism are like the gay lovers who are going to produce this fucking new paradigm that we're
Right.
about to, this new economic paradigm, right? Like they're like, it's like Deadpool and fucking
Wolverine.
it's Deadpool and, yeah, and Wolverine right now, you know, like they've just been like slashing at each other for years, you know, like waiting for the moment when they actually just fuck so hard and conceive like a brand new, you know.
That's a great metaphor. That's so good. I mean, this is why I'm so optimistic, is that, you know, we don't have to start from zero. We're standing with so many like ancestors and momentum of beautiful systems that work, and systems that, you know, like capitalism, communism is a great example. Their economic models, much of it is misguided or it's out of alignment with natural law, but there's a lot that works too. Like we can build this like airplane we're in mid-flight, because we're not going to be able to land the plane and just be like, all right, everyone pause, let's stop. Although, you know, we often talk about this with meditation teachers and people who are deep in that practice. If the whole world were to meditate together, even for like 10 minutes, like that could be kind of, that would be an ecstasis eschaton event, I believe. Like if we could actually do that, can you imagine?
Let's say when. You know, I want to use that word when, because I think we're building to that. I think that we're actually on a trajectory there. Right. I don't know if it's 50 years from now or 10. But what I know is that when these pockets of coherence, when 6 people here and there are experimenting with what it means to actually cultivate a truly coherent group awareness, what I call this fractal biohacking, by the way, which is utilizing larger and larger sort of body sets of genetic hardware to like conduct a coherent signal, right? Like it's easy for me, relatively easy for me in this one individual body to conduct a coherent signal. The moment I add another person to try to create a truly coherent signal with 2 bodies, everybody knows is like one of the hardest things in the whole fucking world, or we'd all be like happily in relationship, right? Like, and then to add then a 3rd body, you know, and you know, as we increase the number of bodies, the complexity increases, and so the challenges of becoming coherent increase as well, right? But I was talking to the descendants of some really high kahuna of the Hawaiian people, and they were like, look, like our people still remember defending these islands, chanting Oli, 240,000 people strong, one song, one hula, one dance, against forces that you've never even imagined. Right? Just take that in. 240,000 people, one breath, one chant, one Oli, ha, kahea, like just there, like establishing. We're not going to save the rainforest with tanks. We're going to save the rainforest with Oli, with chant. And we don't even have to be there to do it, because non-locality, we have to send the frequency from across the globe, right? And so the real flex, the real use of the technologies that we have available to us is how to increase our capacity to cohere around the right signal, right? And to clarify and to tune the instrument, this instrument of our bodies, to be a part of that symphony of prayer, right? Like that's my whole life's work. That's the Human Thriving Project in a nutshell, is to make visible, to make available these simple practices that actually recohere your bone, blood, you know, heart, feeling, mind, soul, cock, pussy, ancestors into one actual coherent like instrument, and then to bring our instruments together to play some more beautiful music.
Yeah. I mean, that's the meaning of the universe, right? It's one song, one frequency. It's literally what reality is. It's a musical composition, and it's like we all just have to play our instruments. And like that visualization of like you see this in like movies, right? Like Avatar and stuff. Like we all have a DNA memory of this, of singing, chanting, or breathing together, and the power of sound and that transmission it's way more powerful than like physical phenomena, like you said, like tanks and bombs, like congressmen, like, you know, imagine like on election day tomorrow, just like beautiful people from all walks in America or wherever in the world, whatever countries have an election, like most of the world is having elections, like arm in arm, like chanting together, like singing a mantra, singing a hymn. Like that's the kind of stuff where like people think revolution is like Occupy Wall Street. That's actually revolution, right? That's revolution on a level that I don't think we've seen yet, and we're going to see. That's going to be the really exciting moment where the caterpillar starts going butterfly, and mass awakening, mass, like not like awakening, like we're raptured and we're ascending, we're the chosen people, like awakening to like we're here now on earth and we don't need to do anything. We need to undo some of the stuff that's keeping us out of resonance with nature.
Yeah. Nobody's coming to save us.
Right.
We're 100% responsible for what we leave behind. Right. And, you know, I love this. And what I truly believe is also absolutely a part of it is a reconciliation process.
Yeah.
The social technology of human beings reconciling with one another, because what we're looking at is like really thousands of years old ancestral and tribal antagonies that have never been reconciled, right? And they're not going away. They're going to be transmuted through larger and larger bodies of people coming together. Like, I am living in mono territory, right? I don't have this house that my grandpa bought from some company, some white guy, because good things happened before that, right? I only live in this place because atrocity, and that atrocity has never been reconciled. And until that atrocity is reconciled, there cannot be peace on this land. And that atrocity doesn't have to be reconciled by committing some equal and opposite atrocity. That's not how reconciliation works.
Right.
Reconciliation works by the ascendants of those who were harmed, coming together and acknowledging our inequity, acknowledging the inequitable inheritances that we have, acknowledging our ancestral pain. I get to be 100% responsible for my ancestors' behavior in the eyes of the person who my ancestors harmed, right? When we can cultivate the technology to come together, to open our hearts, to excavate that grief and that pain, and to then restore restore the balance by distributing the resources available to us in a more equitable way for the thriving of the whole, then we can live in peace. Right? That's the revolution. Like getting together in Washington and doing these massive like ceremonies of reconciliation between black and white, between white and native, between, you know, Israeli and Palestinian, right? Like those kinds of fractal biohacking reconciliatory processes that are held carefully, that are like really carefully built up to attune everybody carefully and slowly to the capacity to hold that voltage, and then to carry everyone through that process. Oh, man, we're going to see some big acceleration, right? The kind we like.
Yeah. The natural acceleration is slow and compassionate, and it includes forgiveness and like ferocity of like life. You know, there's a fierceness in that, and a confronting nature of it. But you're absolutely right. Like these ancient feuds and these grievances, like you're right, in natural law, until they're addressed, it's going to be hard to build on top of them. You know, it's not a stable foundation, and that's a big part of our work too. Like I love that you brought that piece up. Yeah, I'm gonna close out here, Josh. I feel like this is a good ending point. I got to get going, but yeah, where can people find you? Obviously, folks, if you're vibing with this, if you like this video, I mean, follow Josh. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share this video if it feels powerful. I'm gonna put this on other platforms. I'll send it over to you as well. But yeah, Josh, what are you working on right now, or anything you want to share?
Beautiful. Thanks, brother. Yeah, like what an honor and a gift to get to be with you. Thank you so much for stimulating this conversation. You're constantly right at the cutting edge of these combos, and it's really fun to track you and to sort of pop in and dialogue with you in different spaces. And I'd really love to just come down to Austin sometime soon and do some regenerative somatics together and like fuck around in the experimental field of like synarchic evolution with y'all, because I know there's a really great family out there doing good
Yeah.
work. You know, people who are curious about me can check out my website, masteryourbullshit.com. Check out my coaching and consulting work. Really, like, I've been in a bit of a in a chrysalis over the last 3 years. I founded a regenerative community on Hawaii. We bought land, we built like an exquisite agreement field, and started to develop that land as a regenerative learning village. And then you know, human greed and power differentials based on money came in, and wow, despite all of our careful constructed agreements, like just absolutely devastated our
Oh,
process and community. But along the way, I got to live for a year on the land, like building a home for less than $1,500 in material costs with a chainsaw and a screwdriver on my bare hands, and growing my own food, and really experimenting with the minimums of human thriving, because thriving is a balance point between scarcity and obesity, right? There's like, we actually, most of us have too much of a lot of things to actually thrive.
sure.
We need to have less of many things. And so yeah, I'm just kind of emerging out of this, like both like very psychically and psychologically like traumatic experience of being the one standing for a set of agreements that nobody else would stand for, and having my stake in what we created and I actually led and called everybody into, taken from me without any compensation or any offer of compensation. And then, you know, we ended up in court and I represented myself and lost. So like, I've been in this like big recovery phase, moving back to California and restoring my grandfather's home here in the Sierras. But that said, I'm so excited to share the regenerative somatics that have emerged out of me. Like, I wouldn't trade any of my experiences for the world. I wouldn't trade places with anybody in that ecosystem for all of the money in the world. If you offered me all the money, I would say, oh, thank you, because I am me now. I have emerged as the self-love and the aloha that I'd never realized I could achieve, right? But I'd like to share that. And anybody who I sit with for 45 minutes, we don't sit, we move, we shake. My work is all about embodiment and bringing all of these beautiful ideas into the very cells and bone structure and posture and breath of the body. And so anybody who wants a little bit more of that kind of integration in their lives after a hard ceremony or after fucking 40 years of trauma, come check me out. It'll be rich, I promise. Yeah.
brother. Really, yeah, it's a wild story, man. I really appreciate your time, Josh. I always love talking to you. I have so many things that I'm gonna digest and integrate. This is a really epic conversation
Yeah.
for you, brother. Aloha. Anyone
Aloha.
watching, really appreciate y'all out there. I know some of y'all watch the recording, and we'd love to hear from you. Big aloha to you all. Cheers, brother.
Let's go, team.
Let's go.